The sun has not yet risen. The dim light of early morning covers the small village. In the old kitchen of a tile-roofed house, a 70-year-old man is busy preparing. His hands are thin. With his calloused legs, he gently arranged bunches of fresh vegetables, just picked from the garden, into a large basket. Bunches of vegetable slush green morning glory, a few 7-year-old eggplants and a few small pumpkins were neatly arranged, waiting for him to take them to the market to sell. The fourth man's life was not far from Hoa. At this age, he should have rested, but he still wanted to work, do some work for comfort, just have money to go to the fields and help his children. He often told himself that when someone advised him to rest, he lived alone in a small house. His wife had passed away long ago and his children were working far away. Every morning he would wake up early and ride an old bicycle carrying a basket of vegetables to the market. Joining the bustling life of traders, for him, the market is not only a place to make a living but also a place to chat, talking and interacting with old friends. That morning, like every other day, the old man carefully checked the basket of vegetables, put it on the bicycle he had been with for many years and then pedaled out into the street, in the cold morning wind, caressing it. On his face full of wrinkles, but he still felt warm in his heart as he passed the main road near the area market. The old man gently tightened his grip on the handlebars, carefully driving the bike past the cars parked closely. Suddenly, when he was about to turn into a small alley, his bike wobbled, and the sound of a collision rang out. He was startled, the bike lost balance and his basket of vegetables fell down. A few bunches of vegetables and a few eggs rolled on the road. He turned around and saw a shiny black car parked on the sidelines, a long streak of energy clearly visible on the car's body. He stood still for a moment. His heart was pounding, not because of pain, but because of fear. The car looked very expensive. He knew he had just caused a big problem. Oh my God, why crashing into a luxury car like this? He muttered, his trembling hands picking up the bunches of vegetables scattered on the ground. While he was still confused, the car door opened, revealing a young man wearing dashing down. His face was full of anger. He looked at the scratches on the car, then turned to Mr. Tu. The old man, what the hell are you doing? His voice rang out, harshly attracting the attention of passersby. He bowed his head in a soft voice. Dude, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you. Can you pay for it? Do you know how much this car costs? He interrupted him, his voice getting louder and louder in the road. He started to stop and look at the argument. The fourth man felt his face burning with embarrassment and worry. He quickly said, I'm sorry. It's just that my bike's handlebars slipped. Just let me know. No matter how much it costs to repair the car, I will try to collect the money to compensate, but your apology only seems to make people angry. He was even more upset. He walked over and pointed his finger at his face. He knew when to collect the money. It was his fault that he had to bear. He's old and can't stay home to rest. Why go out and bother others? Those words cut into Mr. Tu's heart like a knife. He could only bow his head and his trembling hands picked up the bunch of vegetables and fruits. The egg was broken. In the midst of a tense situation, a female voice spoke up from behind. What's so noisy? What's going on? Tell me clearly. Why are you raising your voice to an older person like that? Everyone's eyes are on you. Her eyes turned to a person, a politely dressed noble woman stepping down from the back of the car, her eyes shining with seriousness mixed with calmness. The noble woman stepped forward, a designer handbag slung over her hand, high heels tapping steadily on the street, her gaze scanning the scene. A luxury car. Scratched. The skinny old man was bending down to pick up the fallen bunches of vegetables. And the curious crowd stood around. She frowned slightly, but her voice was low but powerful. What's going on here? The young driver who had just scolded the private man turned to the woman. His face immediately changed. The rude look disappeared and was replaced by it was clear respect. He bowed his head politely. Sir, this old man on a bicycle scratched your car. I'm just pointing out, just processing how to handle it. Why are you raising your voice like that? She looked at him with eyes that couldn't hide her dissatisfaction. The driver was embarrassed and didn't dare to say more. Seeing that, she turned to him and raised her voice more gently. Sir, are you okay? Are you injured anywhere? The fourth man looked up, his eyes red, feeling pressured and embarrassed. He shook his head with a trembling voice. Thank you, I'm fine. I just accidentally drove my car. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. She looked at him for a moment and then nodded slightly. Her eyes softened but still maintained a serious look. When he turned to the driver, the car was scratched but not seriously. Why scolding him like that? I don't know how to behave. It's normal for him to be old and having a hand accident. We need to solve this problem, but not by bullying the elderly. The driver bowed his head and mumbled. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm a bit hot-tempered. The woman sighed and shook her head as if dissatisfied, then turned around arrived. The crowd was standing there watching. Everyone please don't stand here anymore, I will handle this matter. The people standing around started to spread out but no one left completely, they just backed away a little, their eyes were still focused. During the conversation, she looked at the fourth man and gave a small smile. Please calm down, I'm not that kind of person. It's difficult for you, just because of a small scratch, but can you tell me everything so I can understand more clearly? The fourth man breathed a sigh of relief, feeling that her words were a great comfort. Lao, he bowed his head to explain. Like, this morning I went to the market early, my bike's handlebars slipped so the VA got into your car. I didn't mean it, I really didn't mean it. If you need your car repaired, I will try to collect money to pay for it. I know this is my fault. The woman listened attentively, occasionally nodding but did not interrupt the fourth man. After listening, she smiled slightly. Are you okay? No need to worry like that. I see that you were very honest and responsible. This car only had minor scratches, nor they need to make a big deal out of it. But the young driver still appeared annoyed and spoke up. But whatever it is, it's his fault. If we let it go so easily, others will think what if it happens again in the future? Someone damaged the car, then said, sorry, and that's it, she said with a serious face and a sharp voice. That's enough, it's my fault. I'm sorry, but you are not allowed to use such an attitude, to talk to her. Do you know how old she is? Do you know what it is to respect the elderly? Her sharp words make people talented. The driver fell silent, the surrounding crowd whispered, their eyes changed from sympathy and admiration to admiration for the woman. A woman, one person in the crowd spoke up. What she said was so right. Nowadays it is rare to see I still maintain such respect with the elderly. Hearing that, his heart felt both comforted and appreciative. Sorry for causing trouble, he hesitantly added. I really thank you for understanding, but it's still my fault anyway. Miss, just tell me how much it costs to repair the car. I will try. Before he finished his sentence, the woman gently raised her hand to stop. No need, sir. I don't need money to repair the car, but you have children and grandchildren. No. Can you call your children and grandchildren here so we can discuss the solution further? The old man nodded and pulled out the phony old phone from Ra's pocket. He trembled as he dialed the number. His voice was soft. Father, I'm here. Come to the main road near the market. I've got something I need your help with. On the other end of the line, a man's voice was heard. The young man called out worriedly, what's going on? Father, are you okay? I'll come right away. When he hung up, the woman smiled, smiling and talking in a calm voice. We wait for his son to come and then continue talking. Don't worry, there is a way to solve everything. The old man nodded slightly and his heart gradually felt more secure, but he did not know that the appearance of his son will bring a surprising turn to this story. Less than 20 minutes after the monk called, a motorbike drove up at quite a fast speed. The driver was Hoang, the only son of the monk. Hoang stopped the bike, quickly took off his helmet, and ran towards the crowd. Standing around the luxury car, Char is okay, is he injured anywhere? He asked in a hurry. He checked all over his body. His face showed concern. He shook his head in a sad voice. It's okay, I just accidentally scratched someone's car. I'm sorry, but the driver said he had to pay for the car to be repaired. I called you to come and help me. I didn't know what to do. Hearing that, I panicked and turned to look at the car. Long scratches were clearly visible on the glossy paint, but what caught his attention more was the driver's unpleasant attitude. Unable to hold back his anger, he shouted loudly. The car was only slightly scratched, but he made a big deal out of it. Why is it like this? This is my father. Isn't it enough? Why did you scold him so harshly? The driver frowned and was about to object, but the woman standing next to him quickly raised her hand to stop her. She calmly looked at Hoang. Her eyes were sharp but no less calm. He was her son, Hoang. Nodding, his anger still unrelenting, he replied, yes. I am the old man's son. This is father's fault but your driver's attitude is too much. Are you the owner of the car? If you want to fix the car, I'm willing to pay, but I don't accept them bullying my father. The woman smiled slightly. The smile was both gentle and contained intelligence. She spoke up. Calm down. I'm the owner of the car, not the driver. Absolutely no intention to bully her. She was very sincere and apologized, and I don't see this as something too big to make a fuss about. Her words were like a bucket of cold water, calming Hoang's anger. He silently looked at her with searching eyes and nodded. If you say so, I would like to thank you, but my father will still accept it responsible. We will pay for the car repair for you. The gentleman quickly pulled his son's hand, his voice full of worry. Hoang, I said I didn't mean it. This lady also didn't make things difficult for me. Don't be too tense, but Hoang still maintained a serious look. He turned to look at the woman with eyes full of determination. My father did wrong. May don't want my father to get a reputation for causing trouble and not taking responsibility. Just tell me the price to fix the car and I'll take care of it. The woman smiled slightly and shook her head. He seemed like a straightforward and responsible person, but I reminded him. Again, this is not necessary. This scratch is not worth me fixing. More importantly, the attitude of everyone here is what needs to be talked about. She turned to look at the driver. Her eyes became cold. You know very well, I don't like people who behave disrespectfully. How many times have I told you, never using an overbearing attitude towards the elderly? You make me disappointed. The driver bowed his head and did not dare to say anything furthermore. The surrounding atmosphere became quiet. Suddenly the woman turned back to look at the fourth man, then gently bent down to pick up a few bunches of fallen vegetables. These things were his labor. Let me compensate him. Oh, the eggs and vegetables are spoiled. He quickly waved Tay away and shook his head. No, no need. I scratched the car, miss. It's not right for you to compensate me now, but you're still determined. You take out a large bill from your wallet and give it to the fourth man. Please take it. This is not the money to repair the car, it's my compensation. For his efforts, he just assumed that I bought these vegetables and eggs. The crowd around him whispered. Some people admired the woman's kindness, others were surprised by the way she handled the situation. Hoang stood watching and felt his heart soften. He bowed his head and said to the woman, thanking her for not making things difficult for my father. I was too impatient today, I hope you'll forgive me. The woman smiled and replied in a gentle voice full of meaning. Nothing. I just hope you and the driver here learn a lesson. Never let anger take over. Respect for others, especially the elderly. The world, this is enough chaos. A little kindness will make everything better. Her words made both Hoang and the crowd shocked to be silent and ponder. When everything seemed to be over, the woman looked at the fourth man again and added, he was a good person. He taught his son a lesson about responsibility and love. Man, I'm very grateful for that. That sentence was like a ray of light that warmed my grandfather's heart, but he didn't know that is not the end of the surprises in this story. After everything seemed to have calmed down, the woman turned to look at the fourth man and Mr. Hoang. Her eyes sparkled thoughtfully as if she were pondering something. She finally gave a gentle but meaningful smile, and slowly rose his ear. I don't want to make things difficult for you or your son, but I want to say a few things before leaving. Both the prince and the prince were surprised. They listened with respect, while the surrounding crowd, also unable to leave. The woman continued. Her voice was both soft and full of emotion. It's actually understand her situation very well. Because in the past my family was also poor. I grew up in a village. I also saw my mother selling vegetables in the market to feed my brothers. We grew up. Every time when I'm in trouble, I wonder why people treat workers so coldly when they grow up. I promised myself that I would never forget those days, and never let other people's self-esteem be hurt, just because of material things. Your words made not only the private person, but also the whole crowd. Everyone was silent. Some people started whispering to each other. Their eyes looked at the woman and the car with admiration. Hey, it may be very expensive, but it is not as important as human love. A scratch on the car is nothing, compared to the value of respect for the elderly, or sympathy for hardworking people like you. Grandma, you've apologized. That's enough. No need for any compensation. She looked straight in the eye. Hoang continued. You're a good son who knows how to protect your father, but sometimes instead of getting angry, we need to learn to talk more calmly. Your father taught you a lesson about responsibility, but I think, today you should also learn another lesson, about patience and listening. Hoang silently felt the words penetrated deeply into his mind. He bowed his head and whispered, thank you, I will remember that. Suddenly, the woman turned to the driver with a more serious look, and he was the one who worked for me. But your attitude today makes me very disappointed. I don't need a good driver. I need someone who knows how to be respectful, respect and sympathize with others. Remember that if you continue to behave like today, you will not work for me anymore. The driver bowed his head and mumbled, I'm sorry, I'll learn from it. The woman nodded slightly, then turned to the fourth and the royal again. She took out a business card from her bag, and give it to Hoang. If you need help with your work or any other help, please call me. I'm always willing to help people with will and compassion. Hoang awkwardly accepted the business card. I read it and couldn't help but be surprised when I realized that Ra was the CEO of a large corporation in the city. Small smile. Don't be surprised. I'm just a person who has gone through difficulties, so I understand the value of kindness. Finally, she bowed slightly to the fourth man and got into the car. Before closing the door, she added, I hope your life will always be favorable. Stay healthy and continue to live well as you always do, as he did. The car slowly rolled away from the scene, the crowd began to disperse. But the eyes still remained, admiration for the woman who had just left. The private man looked at the business card in the emperor's hand, sighed in relief and smiled. I see there are still many good people in this world. She is truly only an understanding person. Hoang nodded, his eyes filled with respect. He suddenly realized that life is not only about responsibility and pressure, but also about kindness, and valuable lessons from people. When we met by chance, when the luxury car disappeared at the end of the road, the space seemed to become quiet. Furthermore, the old man was still standing there, his eyes following the direction of the woman who had just left. An indescribable feeling of gratitude and relief welled up in his heart. He panicked and turned to the tea, carefully picking up the bunches. The vegetables were still on the ground and said, his voice deeper and warmer than before, Dad, I was wrong today, I'm too hot-tempered. Didn't think about Father's feelings. If it weren't for her, I'm afraid things would have gone further. He smiled kindly and his eyes were full of kindness. I realized that it was good, not always. You should use a firm tone to solve problems. Especially when you don't understand the other person clearly and bow your head in panic and silence. Thinking, it seemed, he not only learned a lesson from the Kia woman, but also realized the importance of being calm and respectful. In any situation, the people around him began to scatter, but the story about the fourth man and the woman was still the main topic, the subject of whispers. An old lady selling goods nearby looked at the fourth man. Her eyes were full of affection. He was so lucky to meet good people. I've lived here for many years. I've rarely seen anyone as rich and kind as her. If this society had many people like that, life would be easy. How gentle, another man continued. That's right, she didn't just teach her driver how to respect people, not only different, but also made witnesses like us. Ponder. Those words made the fourth man feel both warm and shy. He nodded slightly in thanks and then turned back to the king. Please help me. Gather all the vegetables, this matter is over, I have to continue with the work. Hoang nodded and helped father prepare hay, rearrange the things he could use, but in his heart he still kept thinking about the business card the woman left behind that night. When father and son sat in front of the old wooden table in the small house, panicked, he took out Ra's business card and looked at the woman's name, Nguyen Than Ha, CEO of An Grup Duong. Hoang pondered and then turned to the fourth man. She said, if you need anything, just contact me. Do you think I should try? The fourth man was surprised and nodded. Why not? But you have to remember, AI helped me forever. If she gives me a chance, I have to work with my own ability and kindness. Bright the next day, Hoang decided to call the phone number on the business card. After a short conversation, he was invited to Ms. Than Ha's office to discuss. With sincerity and a positive attitude, Hoang was quickly accepted. A new job, in her corporation, with a position suitable to his ability. As time passed, his life remained as simple as before, but his smile became brighter. Hoang grew more and more mature, not only in work but also in the way he treated people. He learned to persevere. Be patient, listen and respect the small, but precious values in life. Every time you meet them, Hoang's father always recounted the new lessons he learned from work, and his kind colleagues. He also often mentioned Than Ha, who not only changed his life, but also helped him realize his goals. Outlining the value of empathy and kindness, the story of a noble woman and an old seller of vegetables, and the driver that year gradually became an anecdote, told in the market. Everyone mentioned it as a lesson about human love, about civilized behavior and kindness. In one day, peaceful morning, when the fourth man was sitting on the porch sipping a cup of hot tea, he suddenly smiled when he saw a car stopped in front of the alley. The person who got out of the car was none other than Mrs. Than Ha. Hello. I came to visit you a little. The grandfather invited her into the house. The joy was clear on her face. They sat and talked together. Stories about life, about simple but beautiful things. Before leaving, Ms. Than Ha left behind a message saying stuck in his mind forever. He knew that kindness is like a seed. If you plant it in the right place, it will sprout and spread. On that day, he was the one who planted that seed in my heart. And everyone around him, he sat quietly, watching the figure of Mrs. Than Ha disappear, feeling in his heart he feels strangely warm. Perhaps no matter how difficult life is, as long as we remain kind and compassionate, everything will get better. The story is not just a small incident, but a story, proof that in a bustling society, kindness and respect are always immutable values, and even if AI knows how to sow them seeds, this world will become more beautiful day by day.